didn't see you there. I'm Mary on the Wall, and I'm preparing for the Halloween season. Let me just make sure I got everything I need. Pumpkins? Check. Costume? Check. Absolute fear and agony? Hold on, let me check my pants. Oh, what the heck? Why am I not terrified? It's supposed to be the season of scares and fright. I mean, I just watched Freddy vs. Jason. But honestly, I think that just made my pants drier. If only I had a game that was so terrifying it could scar me for life. 'Tis the dream for everyone, but where will I find such a horrifying experience for the Game Boy Color? Oh, joy! Among gaming's great horror series, Alone in the Dark is one that's often forgotten, which is a shame because without it we wouldn't have many of the big dog horror series like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Its first entry was a PC game in 1992 by Infogrames. What, did they have a stroke while trying to say Infogames? It introduced many series staples, such as Bad. But it's also where the story of our protagonist, Edward Carnby, begins. When will he join Smash Brothers? Just a few entries later, and presto! Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, the fourth game in the series, released in May of 2001 on the Sony PlayStation, the Sega Dreamcast, and Windows computers. Releasing a horror game in May is a bit silly, but that's besides the point. The reviews were generally favorable. IGN says, with a score of 73, if you grew up on this series and were hoping for the next great chapter, you'll be left alone in the dark. I don't get it, isn't 73 supposed to be a positive score? Games Domain says, with a score of 70, even with its dodgy graphics and other niggling problems, Alone in the Dark will make you jump even with the lights on. You couldn't have used any other adjective. And Game Revolution says, with a score of 75, a satisfying horror game with many of the sinister elements that made the original so good, but its failure to do anything new that Resident Evil hasn't already done, other than a cool flashlight, leaves this zombie hungering for more. Brains, anyone? Don't mind if I do! But what if you want something worse? Introducing the Game Boy Color! It's sleek, it's colorful, it's compact, it's the hottest handheld in May of 2001. Wait, no it isn't, the Game Boy Advance already came out at this point. And the best part about the Game Boy Color is I don't own one! Yeah, we're gonna be soaking our pants with the Nintendo Switch Online Game Boy app. It's not ideal, nothing screams soaked pants like Game Boy Color, but with this, our pants can at least be somewhat damp. This is Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare for Game Boy Color. Ah! Wow, starting right off the bat with a jump scare here. We have to pick between three spooky nationalities. I'm going with the Yankees, because if there's one thing I hate more than free healthcare, it's basic sympathy towards others. In The New Nightmare, you play once more as Edward Carnby. You're informed by Alan Cedric that your partner, Charles Fisk, has been murdered by Alan Morton on Shadow Island. So the two of them mosey on over there to avenge Fisk and finish the case he was working on when he died. I'll recover the statuette, and pray Morton tries to stop me. It'll save me the trouble of having to hunt him down. Oh, for a second there I thought this was going to be a Cabela spinoff. Finish your sentence faster next time, Carnby. So let's dive into the gameplay. As our good old pal Ed, we meander about these actually sort of impressive environments for the Game Boy. Just listen to this sound design. You can pick up bullets on the floor, but a vast majority of the gameplay is really just walking about. But these environments are very limited and you have to go between screens to progress. Okay, it's a Game Boy, I get that, but it's really annoying that some screens you go to require you to walk in the opposite direction as the screen prior. So if you're just absent-mindedly holding one direction, you go back and forth awkwardly until you realize what's going on. You know, like driving. Soon enough, you learn you have the ability to examine some objects. It's very unclear what objects you can examine, and rarely does it ever give you any helpful information, so in reality, it's just the ability to make this song randomly appear out of thin air. Yeah, that's Radiohead. But walking isn't all you do, no, because it turns out this game pulls a lot out of the Pokemon Handbook. And no, it's not just because they both have a character named Edward. Turns out The New Nightmare has random encounters! In most RPGs, random encounters make me groan. In Alone in the Dark, The New Nightmare, random encounters were the only time I felt a modicum of joy. In battle, we have a top-down view, which is much brighter and more vibrant than the usual gameplay. We have to shoot down giant spiders and dogs. Okay, giant spiders, sure, but dogs? I don't know, I just don't see Edward Carnby as the old Yeller-in type. Maybe this is why he's not in Smash. But looking past the blatant animal cruelty, the random encounters were easily the most fun parts of the game because they were the only parts where I was ever actually challenged. I mean, I was barely challenged, but it's something. There is some sort of combat. It's something to do other than wandering around and occasionally listening to Radiohead. Anyways, I finally made it inside the mansion and oh, there's Fisk. In a painting like Luigi's Mansion, which was released later on in 2001. You filthy plagiarist! He tasks Ed to find his amulet. To respond to this request, Ed decides to dry hump the painting. Interesting tactic. So now we meander this mansion looking for the amulet. I am so lost! The layout for this place is senseless. The backgrounds, while impressive for a Game Boy, are so muddy and it's not clear what you can and can't interact with. There's no indication of where I have to go or where I've already been. Every time I go up or down stairs, it does this. For some reason, that is the final straw. This game is not fun, it is so confusing and slow and ugly, I quit! But guess that means I'll never really be frightened. You know what? This game is confusing and convoluted, but maybe that's the point. Maybe the terror isn't supposed to be the spiders or the dogs or the Radiohead or the stairs, but instead the unknown. And the only thing really scarier than the unknown up there, or the unknown in here, is the unknown in here. So this is it! I finally get to feel real fear and appreciate the Halloween spirit! Let me check my pants! Ah! Screw it. That's better.